in the movies. And so a whole generation of actors lost their job, and a new series of actors came in. Next, we're going to have the movies replaced by BrainNet. Because in the future, people will say, who wants to see a screen with images? That's it. Sound and image, that's called the movies. Our entertainment industry, this multi-billion-dollar industry, is based on screens with moving images and sound. But what happens when emotions, feelings, sensations, memories can be conveyed on the internet? It's going to change everything. Human relations will change because you'll be able to empathize and feel the suffering of other people. We'll be able to communicate telepathically. And this is coming.
You described BrainNet in Future of the Mind. It's such an interesting concept. Do you think, so you mentioned entertainment, but what kind of effect would it have on our personal relationships?
Hopefully, it will deepen it. You realize that for most of human history, for over 90% of human history, we only knew maybe 20, 100 people.
Yeah.
That's it, folks. That was your tribe. That was everybody you knew in the universe was only maybe 50 or 100. With the coming of towns, of course, it expanded to a few thousand. With the coming of the telephone, all of a sudden you could reach thousands of people with the telephone. And now with the internet, you can reach the entire population of the planet Earth. And so I think this is a normal progression.
And you think that kind of sort of connection to the rest of the world, and then adding sensations like being able to share telepathically emotions and so on, that would just further deepen our connection to our fellow humans.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, I disagree with many scientists on this question. Most scientists would say that technology is neutral, a double-edged sword. One side of the sword can cut against people. The other side of the sword can cut against ignorance and disease. I disagree. I think technology does have a moral direction. Look at the internet. The internet spreads knowledge, awareness, and that creates empowerment. People act on knowledge. When they begin to realize that they don't have to live that way, they don't have to suffer under a dictatorship, that there are other ways of living under freedom, then they begin to take power. And that spreads democracy. And democracies do not war with other democracies. I'm a scientist. I believe in data. So let's take a sheet of paper and write down every single war you had to learn since you were in elementary school. Every single war, hundreds of them, kings, queens, emperors, dictators. All these wars were between kings, queens, emperors, and dictators. Never between two major democracies. And so I think with the spread of this technology, and which will accelerate with the coming of BrainNet, it means that, well, we will still have wars. Wars, of course, is politics by other means, but they'll be less intense and less frequent.
Do you have worries of longer term existential risk from technology, from AI? So I think that's a wonderful vision of a future where war is a distant memory, but now there's another agent. There's somebody else that's able to create conflict, that's able to create harm. AI systems. So do you have worry about such AI systems?
Well, yes, that is an existential risk, but again, I think an existential risk not for this century. I think our grandkids are going to have to confront this question as robots gradually approach the intelligence of a dog, a cat, and finally that of a monkey. However, I think we will digitize ourselves as well. Not only are we going to merge with our technology, we'll also digitize our personality, our memories, our feelings. You realize that during the Middle Ages, there was something called dualism. Dualism meant that the soul was separate from the body. When the body died, the soul went to heaven. That's dualism. Then in the 20th century, neuroscience came in and said, bah, humbug. Every time we look at the brain, it's just neurons. That's it, folks. Period. End of story. Bunch of neurons firing. Now we're going back to dualism. Now we realize that we can digitize human memories, feelings, sensations, and create a digital copy of ourselves. And that's called the Connectome Project. Billions of dollars are now being spent to do not just the genome project of sequencing the genes of our body, but the Connectome Project, which is to map the entire connections of the human brain. And even before then, already in Silicon Valley, today, at this very moment, you can contact Silicon Valley companies that are willing to digitize your relatives because some people want to talk to their parents.
Yeah.
There are unresolved issues with their parents. And one day, yes, firms will digitize people and you'll be able to talk to them a reasonable facsimile. We leave a digital trail. Our ancestors did not. Our ancestors were lucky if they had one line, just one line in a church book saying the date they were baptized and the date they died. That's it. That was their entire digital memory. I mean, their entire digital existence summarized in just a few letters of the alphabet, a whole life. Now we digitize everything. Every time you sneeze, you digitize it. You put it on the internet. And so I think that we are going to digitize ourselves and give us digital immortality. We'll not only have biologic, genetic immortality of some sort, but also digital immortality. And what are we going to do with it? I think we should send it into outer space. If you digitize the human brain and put it on a laser beam and shoot it to the moon, you're on the moon in 1 second. Shoot it to Mars, you're on Mars in 20 minutes. Shoot it to Pluto, you're on Pluto in 8 hours. Think about it for a moment. You can have breakfast in New York and for a morning snack, vacation on the moon, then zap your way to Mars by noontime, journey to the asteroid belt in the afternoon, and they come back for dinner in New York at night, all in a day's work at the speed of light. Now, this means that you don't need booster rockets, you don't need weightlessness problems, you don't need to worry about meteorites. And what's on the moon? On the moon, there is a mainframe that downloads your laser beam's information. And where does it download the information into? An avatar. And what does that avatar look like? Anything you want.
Yeah.
Think about it for a moment. You could be Superman, Superwoman on the moon, on Mars, traveling throughout the universe at the speed of light, downloading your personality into any vehicle you want. Now, let me stick my neck out. So far, everything I've been saying is well within the laws of physics. Well within the laws of physics. Now, let me go outside the laws of physics again.
Here we go.
I think this already exists. I think outside the Earth, there could be a superhighway, a laser highway of laser porting with billions of souls of aliens zapping their way across the galaxy. Now, let me ask you a question. Are we smart enough to determine whether such a thing exists or not? No. This could exist right outside the orbit of the planet Earth, and we're too stupid in our technology to even prove it or disprove it.
We would need the aliens on this laser superhighway to help us out, to send us a human interpretable signal. I mean, it ultimately boils down to the language of communication, but that's an exciting possibility that actually the sky is filled with
The
aliens.
could already be here, and we're just so oblivious that we're too stupid to know it. See, they don't have to be in alien form with little green men. They can be in any form they want, in an avatar of their creation.
Well, in fact, they could very well be.
They can even look like us.
Exactly.
We'd never know.
One of us could be an alien.
You know, in the zoo, did you know that we sometimes have zookeepers that imitate animals? We create a fake animal and we put it in so that the animal is not afraid of this fake animal. And of course, these animals' brains, their brain is about as big as a walnut. They accept these dummies as if they were real. So an alien civilization in outer space would say, oh yeah, human brains are so tiny, we could put a dummy on their world, an avatar, and they'd never know it.
That would be an entertaining thing to watch from the alien perspective. So you kind of implied that with a digital form of our being, But also biologically, do you think one day technology will allow individual human beings to become immortal besides just through the ability to digitize our essence?
Yeah, I think that artificial intelligence will give us the key to genetic immortality. You see, in the coming decades, everyone's going to have their gene sequenced. We'll have billions of genomes of old people, billions of genomes of young people. And what are we going to do with it? We're going to run it through an AI machine, which has pattern recognition, to look for the age genes. In other words, the fountain of youth that emperors, kings, and queens lusted over, the fountain of youth will be found by artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence will identify where these age genes are located. First of all, what is aging? We now know what aging is. Aging is the buildup of errors. That's all aging is, the buildup of genetic errors. This means that cells eventually become slower, sluggish, and they go into senescence and they die. In fact, that's why we die. We die because of the buildup of mistakes in our genome, in our cellular activity. But you see, in the future, we'll be able to fix those genes with CRISPR type technologies and perhaps even live forever. So let me ask you a question. Where does aging take place in a car? Given a car, where does aging take place? Well, it's obvious, the engine, right? A, that's where you have a lot of moving parts. B, that's where you have combustion. Well, where in the cell do we have combustion? The mitochondria. We now know where aging takes place. And if we cure many of the mistakes that build up in the mitochondria of the cell, we could become immortal.
Let me ask you, if you yourself could become immortal, would you?
Damn straight.